and welcome to this edition of Tips for the Transition. I'm Maria Tomás-Keegan, your host. I am on a mission to interview each of the authors of a new book, From Resilience to Brilliance, because they each have a unique perspective on their slice of life. They each have moved through many of what I call life's upside down moments, and they've come out on the other side better and eager to help others. Today's guest she is a shining example, no different than that, and she is Veronica Clark. And her story is called Kintsukuroi Girl. She's going to tell you about that in a minute. Veronica is going to share a tough story, and I believe it's one that needs to be told. She'll lift the curtain on her struggle with anxiety and depression, stemming from years of sexual trauma in her early life. So welcome to Tips for the Transition, Veronica. I'm just so happy you're here and that you've accepted our invitation to join us.
Thank you so much, Maria. I'm honored to be here. So this is really a blessing to be able to share this story with others. So yeah, thank you.
Now, you have to satisfy my curiosity. Please tell us.
Okay.
What Kintsukuroi is, first of all, and then why did you title your chapter Kintsukuroi Girl?
Yeah, it's a great question. A friend of mine told me all about Kintsukuroi pottery, and Kintsukuroi pottery is Japanese pottery that essentially they take pottery that's been broken and it's put back together again and inlaid with gold. And in thinking about that concept, I thought a lot about my own experience in my own life. And, I thought, I'm a Kintsukuroi girl, right? And I didn't always see myself as that. I didn't always see myself as being more beautiful because of my cracks or because of, all of the pain and all of those things that I felt like were broken in me. And it took me a really long time to get to that point. So to me, Kintsukuroi Girl really represents the fact that I'm able to own all my cracks and all of the bruises and all of those bumps and just put everything back together again to be the woman that I am today. And so I honor all of those cracks. And I really believe that that's the same thing with Kintsukuroi. It honors all of the cracks and all of the history that is a part of that pottery, that is a part of our lives, that is a part of who we are becoming more of, which is our beautiful innate self. So
that's beautiful. That's I love that. I've never thought of my cracks being glued with gold.
Yeah.
Great. It's a great image in my mind now. I'm going to remember that.
Thank you. And Marie, a lot of us don't think of our cracks as something beautiful. I'd like to share, I want to talk about my story here, is that when I was 4 years old, that's really when my sexual abuse began, right? So I was really young, and even prior to that was born into a very traumatic kind of household and relationship amongst my parents. And so there was a lot of trauma even that existed before I came into this earth, amongst my family. And then, so it was, something that just progressed into the sexual abuse at 4, and then continued to progress until I was in my teenage years. And so it was really difficult. You can imagine, sexual abuse is not an easy thing to encounter at all, at any point. It doesn't matter if it's once, it doesn't matter if it's twice, however many times, it's irrelevant. But this was really pervasive, and the abuse was not only amongst members of my family, but I'd also experienced abuse from family friends, and was even raped during my middle school years, and went to court, and it was just a big thing. So there was a lot of trauma that occurred around sexuality for me, which created a really big sexual wound that took years and years to heal. And I'm still working on that, right? We're always in progress and in process. But because I had this wound, then I was always trying to fill it up with other things because I didn't want to feel those feelings. I didn't want to feel the brokenness, and I didn't even understand that it was, my thoughts of it being broken. I just was in complete survival mode. And in survival mode, we're always just trying to feel better. So for me, feeling better meant, at one point, using drugs, dabbling into drugs, running away, really behaving in really bizarre ways that I think, you know, many people can relate to when you've been traumatized to such a degree. So there was a lot of repercussions as a result of the trauma that I impacted or like self-inflicted, and that also because I was continuing to attract that type of energy into my life, then, you know, it was just a really perpetual cycle that was extremely damaging. So there's a lot of damage that I'd done to myself, just kind of feeding my own belief that I wasn't valuable, that I wasn't, you know, worthy of love, that I wasn't good enough for love, that I wasn't good enough to, you know, to have a stable life, or, you know, I didn't have good parents. Whatever the things are that I said to myself was only keeping me, you know, more down and more damaged. And so it was a really painful time. I had a big shift in my life, though, when I was 17. And I'll share that I actually dropped out of school. And I dropped out of school. It was my junior year, dropped out of school, and was just, you know, pretty much just doing drugs and partying and just doing whatever I felt like I needed to be able to numb myself, right? Because I just didn't want to feel anything. Feeling nothing was like, you know, almost a safer zone, because if I was like cognizant and feeling the things that I was actually feeling as a result of my wounds, then that was just too much. I really couldn't handle that, right? My energetic field, I wasn't strong enough for that, and it really took me into some bad places. So numbing was the best thing for me to do. So I thought. About 17, though, I actually ended up being in a really great position to be able to hear a woman speak. And I don't know her name. I wish I did, but I think this is how it happens sometimes in our journey, that people that we come across can impact our lives in such a great extent and really can help us to change the trajectory of our lives. And this is what happened in this particular instance. So I met this woman, and I grew up in California, and I was in California at this time. And so there at that particular juncture, I didn't really see a lot of people that looked a lot like me. And, you know, I was really down in my depths of despair, and I saw this woman, and she was just really beautiful and really radiant, and something in me kind of clicked. And I was like, without even consciously being aware of it, I was like, I can do something different, right? Like, I can do something different. And you know, before you know it, I was taking a Greyhound bus from California with flip-flops on my feet. I had a backpack on my back, and, you know, whatever clothes that I had on, and I made it back here to Arizona, and I've been here since then. Now, here's something really important that I want to share, is that while I stopped doing drugs, I got back into school, and, you know, I got a job. Things started to change in the most magnificent way. And it happened because I did make that choice to do that. I made that shift. What happened, though, is that I decided that I didn't have a past anymore. I was deciding to bury that past. I was all of a sudden a girl with no past, right, essentially. And I was going to recreate myself, and I was going to rebuild myself, and I was going to be everything that was going to be acceptable to society. Everything that I couldn't accept about myself, I truly believed that nobody else was going to be able to accept about me either. So it was really important for me to hide all of those things. I had a brand new start, a fresh start, and I was just really going to, you know, I took advantage of that. I've always been a very hard worker, so I got a job really easily. I was going to school, so I did, you know, finished up whatever other credits. I made all those up. I worked a couple of jobs, and then before you know it, I was working at a bank, and this was just, it was wonderful. So I was working at the bank. I started, you know, building up my reputation. I bought a house at a really young age. I mean, things were really taking off, and I was experiencing success like you wouldn't believe, right? I couldn't believe it. And it was something that I'd never dreamed of, because I came from a very, you know, my background is, you know, kind of impoverished, right? And so there wasn't a lot of, for me to look back at and say, hey, there's a possibility for me to have some success and some wealth. But that's what was happening. And it was just furthering this idea of push back all of those other things that were happening. Push back all those emotions. You don't have to feel any of those things. All I'm doing is I'm just going to ride this high. I felt so good about myself, right? I was, didn't realize it then, but I was really building up my ego around, my worth was dependent upon my success. My worth was dependent upon all the material goods and the things that I was acquiring, the cars that I was driving, the houses that I was able to buy. And so by the time I was, 25, I was acquiring a lot of, I started accumulating, more wealth, buying a couple of homes. And I was feeling really good about myself. So I thought, but I really wasn't, right? Because it was all buried. All of the real emotions and the things that I was really feeling about myself were pretty buried beneath all of those things. And so, I did a really good job of ignoring problems with my husband, which was a very abusive relationship. And I was really good at, pretending like everything was perfect. It was very important to me to maintain this like facade of like, my world is perfect. This is so beautiful. Everything is just wonderful. Look at my beautiful home. Look at my beautiful children, my handsome husband. We are the perfect family. And it was so important for me to maintain that I didn't want anything to break that image that I wanted to project to everybody else. And that I wanted to project it to them because that was important for me to feel my own self-worth. Because if for 1 minute anybody outside ever believed that I wasn't good enough or that I didn't have all of these things, then I was going to feel all those shitty feelings that I was feeling before. And there was no way that I could allow myself to feel those things.
Oh, Veronica, I'm so glad that you shared this story. I believe that there are a lot of women who are going to see this and they're going to say, you know what? I have been there too.
Yeah.
And telling this story, I think gives them some voice as well. So I would love to stop this segment here and get into, in our next segment, those emotions that you were stuffing down and how they actually led to, or what they actually led to, without giving anything more away, what they led to for you, so that women can see that there are possibilities for them out there.
Yes.
Will you come back and do that for us?
I'd be happy to. It'd be my pleasure.
Fabulous, fabulous. Thank you so much for being so vulnerable.
Yeah.
And to our viewers, please just stay tuned because this next segment is going to be really powerful. I'm Maria Tomás-Keegan. Till next time.